بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرجال قوامون على النساء صدق الله العظيم. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's Jummah. On the 8th of March, all over the world, we have a International Women's Day, where people from all cultures, background, religions, countries, they celebrate the role of women and the position of women. So I took this opportunity to just share a few thoughts with you about the basic framework in Islam regarding women, and to highlight and remind ourselves of this one half of the population and who are one of the greatest ni'mas, blessings given to us in our lives in the form of our mothers, our sisters, and the high status that Islam has given them. And you find, when you read the Quran, you have to read the Quran in the context it was revealed at the time, and how women were actually treated and seen at that time. And you find that the Quran's portrayal of women and the rights it gave them, the status it gave them, was a real revolution, way ahead of its time. And this is because this was the command of Allah, these were the rules of Allah. And we find that even the first follower of Islam, the first person to accept Islam, was a woman. Often people talk about the fact that Islam neglects women or discriminates or doesn't give them a position. But there's no way we can do that, because the first woman, the first believer in fact in Islam was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's wife, Hazrat Khadija radiallahu anha. The first person to give their life for Islam was a woman. And in the Quran we have a chapter dedicated to the woman, and Nisa, to the woman. We have no equivalent chapter of a chapter for the men. We have references to lots of women in the Quran, to sisters, to wives and to daughters. We have references to Mary, Maryam. Her name is mentioned 24 times in the Quran with so much respect and reverence and love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeatedly says, Ya Maryam, when he talks to her, to assure her. This is the love. He talks about, for example, a woman so we have a woman named in the Quran, we have another woman who's not even named in the Quran, but we are told she was the wife of Pharaoh. Pharaoh, as we know, was a tyrant, a bad person, but in the background there was his wife, who used to do dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who was a very pious person, and Allah mentions her and gives her dua in the Quran. Allah says, وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ, and Allah gives to you the example, to both men and women. وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا امْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ. He gives you the example of the wife of Pharaoh. إِذْ قَالَتْ رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ, and where she did a dua to Allah, that Allah, in the hereafter, give me a house in Jannah, وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ, and save me from this Fir'aun, who was this zalim. So Allah talks about women in a very loving manner. And this is very important to understand, because at the time, the status of women in Arabia, in Greek culture, in Roman culture, was one where the woman wasn't considered to be in any way equal to a man. For example, the Arabs, if we look at the Arabs, they would not consider women, just like the Romans and the Greeks wouldn't consider women to have the same spiritual status as women. For example, they would question whether the woman has a soul in the same way that a man has a soul. So in the books it's لَيْسَ لَهَا بِهَا الروح, that she doesn't have a soul. And those that said yes, she does have a soul, were hard pressed to argue that she has a soul like a man. But then when they did agree that she has a soul, for example in 586 in France, the Christian church had a convention on this very topic, and in that they decided that the woman does have a soul, but she is subservient to the man. Her soul, her life is completely subservient to the man. Similarly, In Arab culture at the time, the Jahiliyyah, we have in the Quran a verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاذْكُرُوهُ كَمَا هَدَاكُمْ to the Sahaba, to the Arabs at the time, that remember the time when you have been guided. وَإِن كُنْتُم مِّن قَبْلِهِ لَمِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. But before this time, before the coming of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, before the coming of the Quran, you guys were in Jahiliyyah. You lived in ignorance. Why? For example, the women were not considered to be separate personalities, separate legal entities who could trade, who could make decisions, who could enter contracts, for example. Women were mere properties, chattels, just like animals. So for example, if somebody died, then what he owned in the form of his women, his wife or his wife, would just be passed on as a property to his siblings, to his brother, for example. So she was a physical object. She had no legal status whatsoever. Arabs would marry as many women as they wanted to, and in fact they didn't even have to marry. In fact, we also know that women were considered to be a burden upon their families. So when a child was born in an Arab family, then there was silence, there was darkness, there was humiliation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this, وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى. And if the news of the birth of a girl is given to them, ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. Then their face would become dark, as if they were sad, as if they were depressed, as if, what's this? We've been given a daughter. And there was so much humiliation in that. And then the Quran continues, يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ. And then he hides himself out of embarrassment, مِنَ الْقَوْمِ, from the people, مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ, because of what he's been told, that he has a daughter in the family. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admonishing, making the Arabs realize that they were so jahil at the time. And women were beaten, and it was acceptable to beat them. And when I mean beaten, I mean slapped, I mean punched. And we're talking about infanticide, the killing of girls as soon as they were born, because they were a liability. Because Arabs would see them as a property, and that they would go to another household, and they were just a financial liability. This is the background in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed verses where Allah is saying, for example, that the Muslim man, inna al-muslimina, and the Muslim woman, wal-muslimati, wal-mu'minina, the Muslim believer again, wal-mu'minati, wal-qanitina, obedient to Allah, the men, wal-qanitati, and then was-sadiqina, was-sadiqati, was-sabirina, the patient men, was-sabirati, wal-khashi'ina, wal-khashi'ati, wal-mutasaddiqina, wal-mutasaddiqati, i.e. virtuous men, virtuous women. In the same verse, what does Allah say? أَعَدَّ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ أَجْرًا كَرِيمًا. Allah says that He will reward them for their actions, regardless of their gender. Spiritually, we are exactly the same. There is no difference in status. They are completely equal. When Allah says about doing good actions, Allah says, مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى. Whoever amongst you, male or female, does good actions, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا. They will always be granted a virtuous life in this world as well as in the hereafter. Hazrat Umar, the Khalifa of Islam, one of the most wisest men in Islam, who was, a very patriarchal man, if you like, very male, very strong, who followed tribal values at the time. When he converted to Islam, he said, كُنَّا لَا نُعِدُّ نِسَاءً شَيْئًا حَتَّى نَزَلَ مَا نَزَلَ بِهِنَّ فِي الْقُرْآنِ. That before Islam, we didn't know a thing about women. We treated them badly. It was the Quran that educated us about our women. What were these reforms, my dear brothers and sisters? The first thing is that the woman was told to be at the same level and status as a man. She had the right to make the decision of her own marriage. Without her consent, the Quran says that you cannot marry a woman without her consent. Before, she was passed off as a property, but then the idea of the mahr was introduced, which could never be taken away. And because men would take the dowry of her and then abuse her physically and emotionally, and then divorce them, and then take back those dowries, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed verses to say enough is enough. If you divorce a woman, it's no joke, you can never take her back again, and you can never take a dowry again. So much so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran that against the cultures of so many places and countries, that a woman can never be kept in a marriage forcefully. If she wants to be released, you must release her. And this is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the Quran says that if the woman wants to be released from the marriage, and I'm not talking about because there's a huge reason. If she doesn't want to be in that marriage, the Quran says, وَسَرِّحُوهُنَّ سِرَاحًا جَمِيلًا, release them in a beautiful manner, in equity, in kindness, with understanding. And the Quran talks so much about resolution, but on equal terms, understanding. Allah says that if a woman has been created for you as a partner, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ, and that He's created for you azwaj, your partner, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, so that you may live with her in tranquility and peace. This is the whole purpose and objective of being with a woman in one's life. But if this sukoon isn't there, for yourself or for your partner, then Allah says, release them. Don't hold them against their will. Allah says that this is a dhulm that you do not only on her, but on yourself. At the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are examples of no fault divorce, no fault, where a woman came up to Rasulullah and said, I don't want to be with the man I'm with. She never gave a reason other than the fact that she said, if I stay with him, I fear I will sin. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam intervened in that marriage and asked the man to release her because he saw she wasn't happy in the marriage. This shows you the status of women, of kindness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ, that they are garments unto you and you are garments unto them. I.e., you clothe one another, you protect one another, you cover for one another. And then you have the famous verse of الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, that men are the قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. What does قَوَّامُون mean, my dear brothers? The word قَوَّامُونَ comes from the word قَامَ. And the word قَامَ has nothing to do with authority. The word قَامَ means to care, to protect, to keep on doing something. قَوَّامُونَ gives intensity. Keep on doing something in terms of care, protecting. So الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ means the man is the protector. He overlooks, he continues his love and sympathy and care of the woman. عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. There is no concept of authority over a woman. No words of authority were used in the Quran for the man against the woman. A lot of this is cultural understandings, and unfortunately patriarchal society, male-dominated society, who use the Arabic of the Quran to try to show that men have a superiority over women. Nothing could be further from the truth. الرجال قوامون على النساء. You are the protectors of women. Why? بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. Two meanings, that because of the bounties, the virtues that Allah has given to you, and this refers to finances. وَبِمَا أَنْفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ, and by virtue of the fact that you spend wealth on them. So Allah is saying, spend your money on your women. How many women go into different households and are still treated as strangers? They are not part of the family. This was the time at that time, and even now. And Allah says, spend money on them. Make them feel valued as an equal. وَعَلَى الْمُوسِعِ قَدَرُهُ وَعَلَى الْمُقْتَرِ قَدَرُهُ. Spend money on them. If you have a lot of money, spend it on them. وَعَلَى الْمُقْتَرِ قَدَرِ. And if you don't have much money, still spend that money upon them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that the best amongst us are those who are good to their women. And on his deathbed, before he left this world, we know the Khutbatul Wida, when he gave his parting words. 5 paragraphs he mentioned. 1 paragraph dedicated to women. And he said, اتق الله في النساء, that when it comes to women, fear God. Treat them very, very kindly. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has told us, and Allah has told us, that the woman has been equated to Jannah. We know that our mothers and the khidmah, the service you do for your mother, will open the door for Jannah. But at the same time, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, be happy when you have daughters. And he who raises 2 daughters will be with me in paradise. So, equating the bringing up of women with Jannah. And his wives tell us that khuluquhul Quran, his character was the Quran. He never raised his hand on a woman, let alone his voice. He never raised a harsh word on a woman, and no violence whatsoever. And in the Islamic understanding and the seer of the Quran, despicable is that man who physically harms a woman, whatever the reason. And I just want to conclude by saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that if we treat our woman kindly, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor us in this world and the hereafter. But those that treat their woman in a subservient manner, and I mentioned there's no authority of a man over a woman, they must be given the right to education. And Allah says even the income, وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَ. They have a right to their own income. They have a right to their own identity, and so much so. In fact, they even have the right to make prenuptial agreements, which we hardly know about. So if you delve into the rights of women, my dear brothers and sisters, it's arguable that in fact women have more rights than men, and this was done deliberately to protect this rahmah, this mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us in our lives. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ.